There are stories that connect us to ourselves and each other. These stories reveal who we are and show us the many vivid, wild colors of our truth. Welcome to Soul Wanderings, where we raise spiritual awareness and foster connections through these shared stories and personal experiences. And now, exclusively on KGRA Radio, I give you your host for Soul Wanderings Radio. Here's AJ.
Hello, happy day, friends. It is Soul Wanderings Night, where we receive an opportunity to hear journey stories from humans from all walks of life, all types of experiences, and these humans show up to share authentic pieces of themselves with all of us. Hello, I am AJ Rasmussen, your host, excited for tonight's show. We have a returning guest who first visited with us back on episode 134. Tonight's episode is 180, so it's been a while, friends. And with some new insight, new experience, and a turn of events for all of us, our guest reached out to share and have a willingness to share, I should say, with us. And I'm just so glad that he did. As a side note, know that this is a brand new episode for you. However, we are pre-recording the show due to the holidays, and my amazing Army son will be home and me desiring to spend time with him, so I won't be in chat the night of. But here's a brand new show for you. I'm so excited to spend this time with you. One way or another, it all got worked out. I'm wishing you all a very happy holiday and hope more than anything you are all healthy and well this season. And let's wander, my beloved wanderers. Let's do this. When we first visited last, we had the opportunity to hear all about his research and book, Safe to Love Again. Our guest shared with us about how we can all find safe, lasting love that everyone deserves. But this year, the challenges everyone is facing in all of their relationships across the board are like nothing we have ever seen. Due to the pandemic, people are asking questions that demand fresh answers. Everyone, whether they are coupled or single, is wondering how love will survive the pressures of social distancing and what will love look like after COVID-19 has passed. It truly is a brave new world for love out there. So let's invite our guest in and have a conversation about relationships in a pandemic and perhaps how to help wrap our brains around what is going on during this time and how we can move forward in love. Please welcome to the show, Dr. Gary Salyer.
Thank you, AJ. It's very nice being here. Thank you for having me back again. This is going to be fun today.
Yeah, I should say welcome back. It's been a while. I was trying to figure out what date that was, but it was well over a year. It's been,
I think it was summer or late spring of 2019.
Yeah, it was a while ago. So it's really neat that you're here. Thank you for your desire to come back and share some time with us. And especially now with all that's going on, what a great topic to bring up and bring into our awareness so that we can navigate through these different times that we've never experienced before. But before we get into that, you know how I like people to get to know you. And if they haven't heard episode 134, where we really got introduced to you, let's do a little recap about who you are and what it is that you do.
Well, I call myself a transformational relationship mentor. And all that means is I really mentor people in a way that rewires the rules for love in their brain. So many times people keep having the same experience over and over again. And they either there's three things. There's something wrong with the world. They make that deduction. So love is screwed. Something's wrong with love these days. Something's wrong with me. What's wrong with my picker? I must be broken. I must be flawed. Or something's wrong with them. All men are. All women are. And it's just these rules that we picked up usually from early childhood, the way our brain got wired for love, or even in a previous relationship. I help people get their brain safe with having the full, lasting love they really want and deserve and need. And for me, I'm just another, soul wanderer like yourself. It's been a journey. I'll tell you that much.
And it's neat that you actually have had not just research experience, but personal experience. You're able to share not just from your own journey, but from having conversations and interactions with others in their journey.
Oh, it's for me, this actually started when I was 7. I grew up in a house with a borderline mother. And I mean, she wasn't your light case. She had episodes of violence, okay, that you had to constantly be looking out for. And an entire family where alcoholism was rampant. Everybody had, divorces. And I remember being at this drunken party with all my aunts and uncles and noticing that when most of them got drunk, they got mean. Right, I had classified every last one of them as to whether they were mean drunks, happy drunks, sad drunks, or violent drunks. So
that's how you categorize everyone, huh?
I had you had to know, and I always loved my Uncle Carl because he would give out $20 bills. He was the happy drunk.
Gotta love those.
Gotta love those, especially when you're 7. You know how far $20 will go when you're 7.
Right. I mean, depends on how much candy you want.
Oh yeah, but some of the others. But I noticed most of them were mean, and I remember thinking, "Gosh, why can't people just love each other?" And so when I went to college, I decided, and I was like the first person in 7 generations to graduate in high school, then I'm going to college. I said, I'm going to make sure that I don't repeat any of that. So I signed up for a double major in psychology and religion. And so I'm thinking, okay, 2 majors in college, that should do it, right? But my senior in college, my favorite psychology professor called me into his office one day and said, hey, we got this experimental personality test. Come on in and I want to see how it rolls, right? So I went in and took it in his office, and then a couple of days later he came in and gave me the results, right? And as I'm walking out, he says, oh, by the way, you have a 90% chance of having this.
90%?
Yep.
That's high.
90%. The funny thing is he's 86 now, and I actually recontacted with him this summer, and we had a conversation. And he said, I remember that conversation and the look on your face. Within 2 hours, AJ, I was so freaked out because this was a lifelong quest for a young man. I said, I delayed graduation and stayed a 5th year when I could have graduated to get another degree in marriage and family. And thought, whew, man, knocked it off, right? And then imagine my surprise when 12 years later, my first wife says, Gary, I want a divorce. I was shocked. We had done premarital counseling. We had done some marital counseling early, and it didn't work. So this time, I'm really kind of hell-bent on making sure I nail this thing down. And I go through like 7.5 years of therapy and pronounce myself and do a lot more and more reading and, John Bradshaw and you name it, right? Did the whole codependency movements, looked at all that, and pronounced myself ready to go. And within 4 years, that second marriage goes down the tubes. In fact, the handwriting was on the wall within 4 to 6 months. And so then I do more therapy, and I began to notice, that I was either creating or picking people that would give me the same type of experience, that somewhere along the line, either I created distance or they created distance, one or the other. And then one day after a very painful breakup, I said, son, there's only one person in the room that's responsible for this for you. And it's you. You can't blame it on women. You can't blame it on love. You can't blame it on culture. All those contribute, not women, but culture does. I'm sure it does because I've said that before. But this is on you. And then the other thing I thought, well, I've done all the work. I've done degrees. I've done therapy up on Wazoo. And I said, if they can't crack the code, I will. And that became and I said, no one should work this hard to have lasting love and for it to show up the same way over and over. And that's when I dedicated my life to cracking the code one way or another. So my past and what I'm doing now, it all prepared me so that when I'm, and I work with clients and I just notice what changes. When that past gives me a good way of looking at research, because I can look at research and notice it's fine research, but it's not going to change anything. Mm-hmm. Versus I can read some research and go, now that footnote or that page is worth its weight in gold. Mm-hmm. And you have to have the past pain to be able to read all the research and know what is just really nice academics and what is actually transformational. That's the key.
What do you mean you need to have the past pain?
Well, when I say the past, you have to have the past pain. Because I have lived this, I have a feel for when someone is talking about changing it versus didn't change it, won't change it, I say. So when I read, I just have an intuitive sense when I'm reading a book or I'm reading an article, whether this is going to be really useful to really helping people change or whether it's a really nice description and it's based on good research, and descriptions don't change. You have to have some way to rewire a brain. Like in attachment theory, we talk about there's 4 styles. One I don't usually talk about because it's more in mental health. It's called disorganized. But most people with what I call middle-class craziness, typical, normal middle-class craziness.
How appropriate.
Yeah. Most people fall into 3 categories if you're in that group of people. 95% of people are, right? They're secure. They're wired to love and be loved. They generally go out and pick really great partners. And they know how to maintain a calm, loving relationship. Doesn't mean they're perfect, but they're good at making repairs. And they feel comfortable depending on somebody and having somebody depending on them. About 50% of the population are wired by that, usually. But then there's the other 2 classes that make up about almost 50%. There's the anxious. And for the anxious, early on, love was there or not there, there or not there. Was a good response and then not a response, a good response and not a response, usually in early childhood. And some part develops this fight response, says, I'm going to lock this thing down. And so they're always afraid of when will love go away? How can I lock this down? So they're the ones that grow up and say, where were you last night? Why didn't you text me back in 10 seconds? Do you still love me? Are you going to leave me? Oh my God, you're going to leave me. And they get so preoccupied with past love going away that they become so anxious that inevitably they drive it away. That's 25%. Then there's the avoidance who didn't hardly get any responses at all. They were left on their own and all those things. And they often look like the precociously mature child growing up. Oh, look how they play by their toys by themselves. But actually, they know no one's coming. They actually walk earlier in life because people didn't respond to them enough, and the brain said, we got to get this ball rolling earlier to get our needs met. And when they grow up, their worst fight, their worst fear, I should say, is, will I be dependent on? Or will I have to depend on somebody else? And so they have an emotionally avoidant, dismissive. Their worst fear is being committed, and oftentimes they're emotionally dismissive because nobody attended to their emotions. So they don't process emotions very well, often termed the emotionally unavailable man or woman, right? So that's 20%. But the point is I've been in those last 2 categories. And at some point in time, every last one of those 3 categories, the brain took the best deal available. So if you're hearing yourself out there and you're listening, if you said, oh my God, that's me, I'm anxious. Oh my God, that's me, I'm avoidant. The label doesn't change anything. There's lots of research that can really do great labels, but the key is to realize your brain took the best deal available. Best deal available. Nothing's wrong with your brain. The only thing is we just have to give it that old security memo, a better deal now, so it can choose the love it deserves versus the old past fear.
Right.
When I was growing up, the best deal available was to be distant from a mother who could throw you against a wall. Playing up in your room by yourself, pretty good deal. Being down there and part of the we like a secure baby would, not so much, right? But when I took that into my first marriage, And I was up there studying, and my wife was saying, I feel lonely. And I said, I don't get it. I'm in the same house with you.
Yeah.
Not so good. My brain was opting for that old security pattern, not so good for a first marriage.
No.
And yeah, that's what I'm saying. Best deal available at one time. Not so good now. And the good news is if you're out there, your brain can find that safety, and it can rewire itself so you can have the full lasting love you deserve.
Oh, yeah. So how would you go about figuring out which you are, more anxious or avoidance, and how do you flip that switch into healing those parts of you so that you can not settle per se, not settle into a relationship that doesn't work for you?
Well, yes. So, there's varieties of books that have a few books, like the book of Tacit, the appendix has a little quiz. I have it in my own book at the end of chapter 2, a little quiz you can take, right? But the biggest thing is what I just described here is when you are thinking about your relationships, just think about how you feel, especially in an intimate relationship. Is there this feeling of, oh my God, I'm never quite sure love is here. Do I get enough attention? Or is your worst fear, when does love go away? Is there this heightened emotional reaction if, somebody gets busy at work and they get called into meetings and their text message isn't responded to in 4 or 5 hours, or when they go away, it just feels like you're losing everything in their life, and it feels so sad. Okay. The other thing, so that would mean you have a more anxious attachment. Now, if there's a part of you that says, gosh, when I have breakups, it just seems like I get over them really, really early. And I don't know, I just seem to get over them pretty fast. And there's a fear of, gosh, I'm afraid of being depended on or someone depending on me. Commitment doesn't feel good. Gosh, sometimes you hear it when people say, well, let's just not label this relationship. Right?
I've heard all of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Or you don't process feelings, just get over it. If you tell your significant other, so, we don't have to process feelings, just get over it. Or as one person in a workshop said, he was a scientist, said, I think logic will deal with everything. And I think your emphasis on feelings is off. It's just logic. Stuff like that. If you are in that category where love, depending on somebody, doesn't feel really good, or being depended on, and somebody already needs to keep some emotional distance, then at that point, you would have to say you've got some avoidant tendencies, or maybe you are completely avoidant. And then there's the secure who, they're all gung-ho. They know they deserve love. They know they deserve to give love. They're good at, my term for them is, they take no BS, they give no BS. And they expect commitment. They expect to be committed to. They expect to give and to be given back to. They expect to empower the other and to be empowered back. And so they're fine with being in long-lasting relationships, and they usually pick things pretty well. Okay? And you can see this. There's been research done. You can see this at airport departures, right?
Yes, true.
And this mirrors what we know from attachment science. There was something called the strange situation. It was an early famous experiment where they took 10-month-old to 18-month-old children, and they just separated them from their mothers for 2 or 3 months. Just had the mom walk outside the door and had a stranger come in and see how they responded to the stranger, and then how they responded to the mom when the mom came back in the room. This is only 1 to 1.5 year old babies. And what they found out, these 3 patterns existed all the way back there. Okay, I'll get back. I'm going to get to the airport thing real quick. And what they found out was, based on the reunion, you could tell whether a baby was anxious, avoidant, or secure by how they reacted when the mom went away and when the mom came back. Right. So the secure baby would cry. Oh, but when the mom came back, they would calm down soon. It was almost as if the brain was saying, I don't like when mom goes away, but I know she's coming back. There was a security, and when she comes there, I'm going to be there. And they would calm down and go back out to playing with their toys. Okay? They stopped playing with their toys. Mom comes back. They calm down quick. They go back out. Now, for the avoidant, sometimes they would get a little upset, but a lot of times they would keep playing with their toys. They weren't expecting mom. And this also works with dads too. They redid it later. This was done in the 50s and 60s. They redid it later with dads, and it's the same thing. They would get all upset. I mean, they wouldn't get upset. They would keep playing with their toys. And when the mom came back, or dad came back, it was like, oh, glad to see you again. These babies did not have a lot of consistent contact and responses to their needs. They learned to be really independent. And they grew up to be the ones that don't like being depended on or depending on somebody else, because they learned to be, precociously mature. And they look like, oh, look at that mature baby. But actually, underneath it is a baby that doesn't expect love to be there for them. Okay.
Wow.
Now, so those three. Now, flash forward. If they wanted to see if this would track to adults. So two ingenious people went to an airport and started looking at how people deal with airport departures. Sure enough, the secure couples would, they would get out of the car and they would help each other, help the one departing with their bags and hug and kiss and say, honey, I'll see you when you get home. Not a lot of drama. No, they know they're coming back. Now the anxious, and I've done this in myself. I've watched couples just to see what I could see. The anxious, oh my God, they would hug for 15 minutes. They would come back and forth to each other. They could barely leave each other. There was one couple I saw in an airport while doing, the transfer thing. And I watched them for 15 minutes come back and forth. They were so anxious, both crying in the middle of the air, and they couldn't leave. They couldn't leave each other. They just kept going back and forth, and I'm going, okay, this is the airport, right? It just feels like you're losing your soul. And when are they coming back? And it's this pit in your bottom of your gut, right? And then for the avoidance, they just drop you off to the curb, and they don't even get your they go, well, see you later. And they can't wait to get away and drive away and go back to their stuff. Well, about them, I got a couple of days to myself, right? It doesn't.
I laugh because I observe all of this, even in my past self, right?
Yes. Go to an airport and watch departures. And you can spot right away who the anxious and the avoidance are, right? And the secure are. So, it's not just, that's what they found out, that stuff from a year, that by the time you're a year to, I argue in my book, Safe to Love Again, year to 3, all this is set up. But as early as a year, it's set up. And it will track barring intervention. Now, if that, so we just simply notice, and the thing I make in my book is, a lot of people have been told that, what is running the show is your great prefrontal cortex. It's limiting beliefs, Well, at 1 to 1.5, what's telling a baby they're secure or anxious or avoidant has already been set up, because the love style will track. And at 1 to 1.5, the prefrontal cortex that does limiting beliefs and does story and does identity and does compatibility lists and values, it's not up and running. It doesn't mean some compatibility and value isn't important, but it's not been myelinated, which means that the neurons haven't been prepared for total functioning yet. So it's not up and running. And even your hippocampus that runs conscious recall memory doesn't really come online until 18 months. So what could possibly be telling those babies that they're to depend on love and to be dependent, or they can't?
That's a good question.
The only thing up and running at that time is feelings. Lots of them.
So
Lots of feelings.
we are able to have all of those big feelings at such a young age.
Yes, specifically 4 feelings, as I argue in my book. If you look at the way the baby develops and the brain develops, I use something called, that if a baby's been welcomed with joy, that means, oh, there's little AJ. So glad you were born.
I hope it was that way.
Yes, not everybody was. If you were given welcome with joy, I was not. I can tell that story later. I mean, my mom didn't even name me for 3 weeks. She was expecting her girl. Not so welcome, right? And so if you're welcomed with joy, and the baby is given a lot of attuned, timely responses so they feel, worthy and nourished to reach out for their needs. So they feel welcome, they feel worthy. That means, moms don't always get it right. 70% of the times, moms or dads don't get it right. But what moms are really good at is continually, if that first thing don't work, oh man, the bottle didn't work. Well, maybe it's the binky. If it's not the binky, maybe it's the blanket. If it's not the blanket, then maybe it's changing them. That's attuned repair. That baby learns to be secure. Now, and if they feel cherished and protected, it means when they get to be a toddler, they are allowed to go explore and be a me with a protective we behind them. You know how toddlers want to go out and explore their room? They don't want you playing with the toys with them. However, if you leave that room, there's all sorts of wow going on. They want to know they belong in a we. This becomes the seminal experience that allows you to create a couple. So they get to feel cherished and protected. Right? And then the 4th feeling that secure babies get are empowered with choice. That means they get to feel totally good being all of who they are, creating internal. They have a right to create their own experience. It means I get to be a good baby and bad baby. I get to be strong and weak. I get to be loud and quiet. All those things. They get to be good with the full range of their humanity, and they get a right to speak, a right to assert, to speak their truth and to have their wins versus having bone-crushing discipline. If a baby between 0 and 3 is given the feelings of welcomed and worthy and cherished and empowered, it gives them the right to feel cozy in their body, a right to reach out for their needs, to be able to create a really good we, to be able to speak up and have their truth. Then the brain at 3 adds all that up, says, I have a full right to love and be loved. Now, and those feelings, welcomed, worthy, cherished, and empowered, become their reference feelings for saying, is this a good relationship or not a bad relationship? So if you're out there, just think for a moment. Look at your relationship or your past relationships if you're single. 1 to 10. How welcome do you typically feel? 1 to 10. How worthy to reach out for your needs do you typically feel? 1 to 10. How cherished and protected? How good is it being in a me and a we that you know is going to be there? You have a home port in somebody's heart. And 1 to 10. Do you have how empowered do you feel? Can you have a right to be the creator of your own experience? You get to be the standard of your experience while also empowering them, and you have a right to have a voice. If any of those are under a 7, something is off in the relationship. If two of those feelings are missing, 7 or under, you're probably thinking we need to work on things, see a coach, therapist, and at 3 or 4, you're in a toxic relationship. Now, to go back to that baby, what if you were given unwelcomed or unworthy or not so cherished or disempowered? This is the bug in the program. Those feelings, too, will become your reference for creating new relationships. So when you have those references, the secure baby will not put up with feeling unwelcomed, unworthy, uncherished, and disempowered. But if you're anxious or avoidant, those feelings of unwelcomed and unworthy are familiar, not so cherished. And you will find and pick people over and over who match those feelings. Now the key is to allow your brain to be safe again, to feel welcomed, to feel worthy.
Yes. And we're going to get
cherished.
I
Yeah.
I love. I say this a lot with you. I notice. I listened to the past show. I said I love this and I love that with everything you were saying, and here I go again. It's just such great information to bring into our awareness, to be more aware of our patterns and behaviors and where and when they've been developed.
Yes.
When we get back from the break, we'll get into it even more so. So stay close, everyone. We'll be right back.
Reclaim your active lifestyle with Angioprim. Angioprim is the original liquid oral chelation supplement. Chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in your veins and arteries that can cause blockages. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in Angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. Find out more. Go to angioprim.com. Talk to a trained consultant by calling Angioprim toll-free 877-882-7221.
Permanent industrial glue impossible to remove? Not anymore, because Handyman Formula by D-Bond is a patented chemical adhesive remover. It's used in the building and home maintenance industry, but now it's available for your home use, for your DIY projects. Unglue stickers, silicone rubber, labels, price tags, flex tape, weather stripping, carpet glue, wood glue, liquid nails, even 3M 5200. And it dissolves graffiti. Yeah, graffiti. Handyman Formula by D-Bond works, and it's safe to use on most surfaces. No need to call a professional. Don't get out the pliers and blowtorch. Just apply a little Handyman Formula by D-Bond and wait 90 seconds, then quickly and easily pull the items apart. Get unstuck. Visit dbondhandymanformula.com. That's dbondhandymanformula.com or call 561-575-4200. Handyman Formula by D-Bond.
The Liberator rocket heater will heat your home for free. The highly efficient Liberator rocket heater has no moving parts. It's safe and strong, constructed of quarter-inch steel. So like all things made in the USA, it's built to last. Uses any kind of wood, sticks, even scrap in its gravity-fed firebox. And it heats workshops, homes, garages, outbuildings, industrial areas, and barns. Watch the video of this blast furnace stove in action. Visit rocketheater.com. That's rocketheater.com.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
More ways for you to make contact. Live Discord chat rooms, live talk radio, live video cast, toll-free HD phones, and coming this year, live streaming TV, giving you more ways to make contact. Your KGRAradio.com.
Hello and welcome back to Soul Wanderings, heard on KGRA Radio. I am AJ Rasmussen, your host, and we are visiting with Dr. Gary Salyer this evening. He has written a book called Safe to Love Again, How to Release the Pain of Past Relationships and Create the Love You Deserve. And tonight we are focusing on, well, we have been focusing on different personality types. Of how we are and how we show up in relationships, which is very interesting, Gary. Thinking about it, going back as far back as 0 to 3 years and how we were receiving love or attention at that time and how it affects our interactions and relationships now, you That's huge. Like, I'm having a hard time coming up with words on how significant it is to be so present and aware with your child and how it affects them from the moment they're in your womb going forward in their lives.
Oh, it is huge. And, the brain is getting every template where our brains come out the least, it's called neural bridge pathways. We have the least neural bridge pathways of any species on the planet, otherwise known as instinct, right?
Mm-hmm.
You think about how much a baby has to learn. This is what gives our brain the full capacity to be, scientific and curious and artistic and all the other things that make us human. But the price tag is you need a lot of parental input. And our brain comes expecting certain responses like having your needs met, being smiles and things of that nature, right? But the brain is learning what it can expect, and it's adaptable, right? So you can have, if you're welcome and joy, you get a right to exist. And you feels good being in your body. And the world feels like a cozy oyster. But if you were rejected or there's hostility, you were unwanted, then you didn't feel welcome, then your brain says, that's so painful because a baby in the first 2 months of life has no ability. The brain isn't developed enough to separate their feelings of their feeling from the rejected from who they are. And so to tone it, they will literally purge some of the connections for the feelings, and they will tend to live in their head and not in their bodies. The word hostility. This was a learned response. It was the only way that baby could survive was by toning down the emotions. That baby usually becomes avoidant, occasionally anxious. I was one that went more anxious, and I had some avoidant things, but I was always worried one was left going away. And then some part of me did a preemptive strike. Oh, I'll be distant so I know where it is, right?
Yeah.
I think the violence of my mother tended to turn the anxiety into a form of avoidance. But every brain has its adaptive capabilities. And so early on, our brains are just learning. And that's why I always say, you got it naturally. And our brain's got neuroplasticity. It's able to adapt because Mother Nature knew that not everybody is going to be born into a perfect situation. And it's not always the result of a parent. For instance, I work with a client who was anxious, and she had world-class parents. She had two older brothers, and she had an older brother and sister who had very long-term relationships. But she couldn't figure out why she was always so anxious, and everybody else in the family, her mom and dad had a 53-year-old, very loving, stable, secure relationship, world-class parents. But when she was 2 months old, her mother got in a wretched car accident and was in the hospital for 10 and a half months with a broken back, 2 broken legs, she barely survived. And the family had to piece together aunts and uncles and babysitters to give her a patchwork form of response. This is in the middle of those. You're getting most of her first year was not spent with the same parental care. Her mom came back at it when she was about a year and did her best. But this is the most of the period where those rights are coming on that I talk, these feelings. She got it naturally. Her brain took a different option because her family couldn't. It wasn't that her mom was trying to be evil. She was in a car accident, but an absent mother will give the same thing. So most time it's due to parental actions, but sometimes parents get their limitations naturally, or the first 2 babies are born and a mom has all sorts of resources. But maybe she goes through a divorce and the 3rd baby is just overwhelming. That baby gets a different mother and the mom is just overwhelmed. Her mom got it naturally, or her spouse was killed. I've had those. And then suddenly a perfectly secure mom is overwhelmed. So, but whatever it is, the brain takes in that experience and says, so, what do I deserve based on that experience? And most time, we can look back and say, well, our parents couldn't give it because they weren't giving it themselves. Mm-hmm. That's a healing response. I know for a fact that, when my mother didn't name me for 3 weeks, I don't think she was very welcomed either. I think she gave only what she had to give. And at one point in time, the later work was about looking back at that borderline. Mom said, sure, I wouldn't want to go through any of that again. But she gave what she had. And it's a pity she was given so little.
Yeah. I've experienced that with my own parents. Their upbringing was challenging, both of them. And so the way that they ended up parenting me was challenging. And they, as a kid, I didn't understand it. Even as a young adult, I didn't understand it. But well into my adulthood, I understood that they did the best they knew how.
Yes.
And so automatically there was a forgiveness process during that. But what is really going through my mind, you keep bringing up the mother and the mother's relationship to child. And I understand there is that bonding because the baby grows inside the mother. But what about the father and their interaction with the child when in the womb going forward?
Oh, the fathers are just as much involved. I mean, there is a certain element that the first 6 months moms tend to be bigger than dads, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean, I can still remember when my son was born, we had determined, based on, courses, and she and I took marriage and family relationships together in college, right? And we had decided we're going to have a very equal relationship, right? And we were going to do things very differently. But, it became very apparent after a few months that with her breastfeeding and me not having the hardware, there was a bond between her and my son that I was not going to get for a while.
Right. Absolutely. Yes.
I realized Mother Nature is not as equal as I thought it would be, right? And there was no way to overwhelm that. Now later on, when he became, when he was a little league coach, or 3 and 4, when we would go out and play basketball and baseball together, that sort of equalized. Now we do know that when you do the strange situation with fathers, babies will have the same reactions, and we also know that babies, believe it or not, they have an overall style, but they can also have a secure relationship with a mom and a non-secure relationship with dad, or vice versa. When I deal with clients, I'm dealing with just as many what I call imprints from childhood, from moms and dads. Sometimes with one client, it may be a little more toward dad, sometimes a little more toward mom, but give it enough sessions, and you do 3, 4, 5 sessions, and I make sure I deal with both parents. If they keep talking about one, I will dig around to find, okay, what's going on with the other one? Because a lot of times when people don't mention the other one, that's where the gold is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it's just as huge. If you're a father out there, babies need your attuned response, right? Both girls and both boys, they need your attuned responses. They need you to be there. It's okay to be able to change a diaper. I know I did. Yes, it's a learning curve.
Yeah, it's not the greatest thing in the world to be doing, but.
Oh, yes. I can still remember no one told me the first time. And I did not realize that my entire arm could be covered if I didn't hold them a few minutes.
My dad used to wrap a bath towel around his whole entire face, just enough for his eyes to peek out when he was changing my siblings. So I just remember finding a lot of humor in that.
That's hilarious. I know. She just said, you get up and change him. I got up and changed him. And oh boy, was it. And I hear this voice saying, what's going on out there?
It's so funny.
Anyway. It's a learning curve. And, and none of us are perfect. If you're a parent out there, every child has their own little manual. even though there are these patterns, every child is a little unique and different, and and it's knowing and paying attention to those differences. One of the cool things, AJ, that I've gotten feedback on my book is I talk about these developmental periods, and I show the patterns that show up in later life. But I talk from these patterns. So what will relationships look like for couples when a little baby wasn't given its right? But I start out in childhood, and then I work towards what the missing right is or what the full right looks like, and then common patterns of you will see in relationships, and people say it's eye-opening. But I have gotten so many emails from parents who, in that 35 page or so in the book that I talk about what's going on with children, they have said, my God, you've made me a better parent. I had no idea what I was supposed to look out for emotionally.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah. And I kind of thought that might be the case, but, Paul Carrick Brunson, who wrote the preface, it's in the preface, when he had his two boys were like 9 and 10 when he wrote the preface, right? He said, he says, you just made me a better parent. He and I were good buddies. We spoke on stage together, and I thought, he and Jill had the most beautiful marriage. I thought I want him to write the preface. And he just wrote me back saying, thank you. Now I am so much more clear on what I need to give my two sons.
That has
now,
to feel
notice
good for you.
This is a father who is reading, if you're a guy out there, who is reading and applying good parenting, saying, hey, I can up my game. What does it take to be a secure father? So, we do, to answer your question, we do have to work hard. I had to work hard at being a father. I didn't have a father in my life. He was the other man in my mom's first marriage. And I only spoke to him a few times in my entire life. And I just had to say, well, I know I have a blind spot, and I read books, and I even took I talk about it in the book, I even took a course on parenting after he was born to make sure I understood, because I realized there was this one incident when Kenny was little, maybe a few months old, and she comes up to me and says, are you playing with him the same way you play with the dog?
Oh, no.
And I thought, busted.
Yeah. Time to up my game.
Time to up the game. And I did. But the cool thing is, it wasn't rocket science. It's just getting in the sandbox and letting them explore and feeling the textures and noticing that the broccoli can be thrown at the wall and it's good. Of course, Mom didn't always like that, but it was, it's things like that. And it was just playing. It was just being with them. It was just playing on their level. If they wanted to take a toy and play with it wrong, let them, Yeah. It was just going, ooh, and reading books, it was all those things.
It was important to be a kid.
Yes, exactly.
In that moment. Mm-hmm.
How hard is welcomed, worthy, cherished, and empowered? How hard is it really? Those four feelings run the show then and now. It's an easy system. It's your brain's natural GPS. If you're a parent, if you're a friend, if you're at work, if you're with your beloved in an intimate relationship, that's what the book does. It makes it easy. And it shows you the road back. Recovering those four feelings will help you stop being anxious and avoidant instead of having a label. And a couple years ago, AJ, I was at a party. And my book had not been released. I was in the process of getting it ready. And there were like 40 people at this party over in Marin that had been a huge, super personal growth community. And about 20 of them had read the book Attached by Amir Levine. And I had written my book to go beyond that, to be honest. And what they all were telling me was that when they read the book that gave us these three descriptions, anxious, secure, avoidant, what's at least 5 or 6 of them, it was divided between men and women, no difference. They said, I felt more and more hopeless. the more I realized I was in the description. And one guy said to me, he said, once I realized I was avoidant, he says, I stopped reading it halfway through. He said, it was eye-opening. He says, but it was also made me feel hopeless. I walked around, he says, I've been walking around afterwards thinking I've got an invisible sign above my head that says screwed.
Oh.
That's why I wrote the book. See, to describe anxious, avoidant, and secure, and there's another one called disorganized, that's good research, but it doesn't change. A label on $5 might get you something at Starbucks.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to be a label.
No.
Labeling something, it's like sometimes people say, oh my God, I think my boyfriend or my girlfriend is narcissist or borderline. In and of itself, that's eye-opening and it's good, but it doesn't change anything. It doesn't change anything.
Right. What happens next?
Yes.
How do I change? How do I transmute this feeling into something more productive and positive?
Exactly. I had one client who was working with me and say, I know in the past, he says, am I avoidant? And not avoidant. He says, well, am I a narcissist? Now, in and of itself, that's not going to help. And it doesn't. And I said, you know what? I said, yeah, she has some characteristics like that. But I said, what if we just looked at what's below the label? I said, what if it weren't so much about a label that no one wants to have, and it's just that as a little boy you weren't given a full right to create your own experience? What if you just weren't given a permission slip to have weakness as well as strength, to have, to be able to be, unloving and loving? What if I said, it's not about the label. It's about giving you back a full right to create your own experience. And then the rest of the label goes away.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
That I really enjoy how in depth you are getting with all of this. It's not just, here are some traits that you have and here's your title. It's more like, this is what you've been experiencing. How about feeling and experiencing something new?
Exactly. Now, let me, we worked on that, and there came a day when we were working with him and his wife, right? And I do this little exercise. And early on, his mother was probably a narcissist and was constantly, quote unquote, swapping him out for somebody else. Anybody else, they would, anything mom would kind of make sure that people thought of other people when they thought of him, because other people could be more impressive in this area, in this area, in this area. He got the idea, if I'm in an intimate relationship, I will get swapped out. How many of us want to have our identity, the part of us that is AJ, the part of us that is, Gary, the part of us is whatever your name is, that unique I? How many of us want that swapped out? I mean, we all have those. That's the big horror in a lot of horror movies, is when the alien swaps out your consciousness. That's what he had lived through. Now, at one point in time, I have these two circles of ropes I put in where I have one spouse sit in one and one at the other. And I go, and then I have as an exercise for the one spouse to leave their circle of self and to step inside the circle of the other person so that they get a hit of what being a we is, what it's a hit of like being inside the other person as just who they are, so they can attune better, right? I call it switching into the other person. When she switched into him, every part of him went up. His head went back, his face went flush, and you could see fear. And the idea of someone stepping in to him was fearful. Imagine what that did for the we. Nothing, right? And that's when we found out, oh my God, it's about being swapped out. No wonder he constantly kept barriers in the relationship or thought of himself first, right? The moment we worked and got it was safe for someone to switch inside of him, that he could create his own experience. He could feel empowered instead of so disempowered. Within 2 weeks, he calls me and says, something weird's going on. He says, I am making decisions thinking about her, and I have never done that before. Because it's safe to be included in a we now. Okay? The we isn't going to swap you out. And they came in the next time and said, we want to do it again. Right? So we did it again. And it totally changed their relationship. Now, at some point in time, keeping all those barriers up, not allowing somebody in, best deal available. Best deal available. And it kept him on the planet. But once we could give him back a feeling of cherished and empowered, for him it wasn't unworthy and it wasn't unwelcome. It was cherished and empowered. Suddenly, when he had it, he could give it. And then, of course, guess what her missing rights were? She never felt empowered or cherished. So she found somebody that would give her back the old reference feeling, right? And suddenly this cup. And now, instead of divorcing, they have a great relationship.
I can imagine. What an amazing exercise to create powerful results. And so simple in the big scheme of things.
Yeah, there's a few more steps in there I didn't get involved with, but the essential idea is a lot of lack of intimacy in relationships is because the other person doesn't switch in and understand us. Nothing is more lonely than someone always staying on their self map. And sometimes people aren't safe switching into another human being. I found that to be the case for myself. I tended before I did the work to stay more on self than to switch in. Now, at some point in time, it's just think about a 3 or 4-year-old with a raging borderline mother who is literally yelling and screaming at the top of her lungs and throwing things against walls. How much do you want to switch into that emotional state?
Right. No, thank you.
No, thank you. And learning, and now for other people, the funny thing is for somebody else, they were, I was kind of terrified of switching into somebody. There was another person that I worked with. They were totally switched in. They had a narcissistic mother, and the best way to make sure you knew when the craziness is coming is to keep your friends close and keep your enemies closer. She was always switched in. Save me if I am always switched into her mental state. I know when it's coming. It's like having the surveillance plugged in, right, in the room, right? And when she tried to be switched into self, which is it's important to be able to switch from the other to self, because if you're always in the other, that's codependency, right? She she just couldn't hardly breathe. And you have a right to separate and belong, to switch in and be on self. And then couples that can communicate, now once they have a hit of self and the other, then they can be in between, what I call shift mode, where they can switch between. These couples can navigate conflict much better than two people who are always on self. And imagine what that, So even during COVID, like we were talking about, those two people are having very different experiences with COVID. One may feel, not so afraid. The other one does, right? Mm-hmm. And if you don't get that, so this is all a right to separate and belong, feeling cherished, and it affects the ability to create your own experience. But what's driving it? Just notice it. What's driving the ability to empathize is like with the one guy I referenced. Did he feel cherished or disempowered? When he felt uncherished and disempowered, the brain naturally said, stay on self, reject other, and this was all a defensive mechanism to protect against these missing feelings. And we couldn't shift him by just giving him couple skills. We had to shift the feelings because the brain was going, oh, you're going to give me some really good skills when it doesn't feel safe to connect? Really? But if it feels cherished, a right to feel cherished and a right to feel empowered, and we went back and found the exact flavor of safety his brain was needing so it would feel safe to feel those feelings. Then suddenly you can give couples skills. And this is where a lot of couples therapy doesn't work. They talk on communication skills. They talk about couple skills. And there's a lot of research to show what the really good masters use. If you look at the Gottman research, they talked about what are the skills of the masters, and it's a beautiful skill set. But the masters all have these 4 feelings. And you give the feelings and if you don't have the feelings to give, you won't be able to give them. I've seen it in couples. If you try to give them a skill set of welcoming or making each other feel worthy and they don't feel it, their feeling of unwelcome and unworthy will come out even if they do the skill set. The feeling always comes through. The beauty of this is, your brain needs these 4 feelings. You were born worthy to feel these feelings. It's not about working, but, there is some self-work to do. But if your brain can feel safe again with these feelings, then your brain automatically shifts. Yes, you'll need, if you're a couple, maybe some skill set stuff because that doesn't always come. But you were born worthy of this. That's why on the back of the book it says, everyone deserves a love that lasts. This is your birthright. You're just reclaiming what was your birthright. That's all. And your brain knows it.
I'm happy you brought this up because you did bring this up in the last time that we shared time together. And when we return from the break, I want to talk more about being worthy and having this gift as our birthright. We'll be back in just a few short moments, everyone. Please stay close.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
The new KGRA YouTube channel is now live. Subscribe and be sure to hit the bell to stay up to date on the latest major announcements, alerts on trading topics, exclusive live streams, live video cast, and that's just the beginning. Be the first to know what's coming from the KGRA TV channel in real time. So keep it locked in to your contact for alternative talk radio on the internet. Your KGRAradio.com. More ways for you to make contact. Live Discord chat rooms, live talk radio, live video cast, toll-free HD phones, and coming this year, live streaming TV, giving you more ways to make contact. Your KGRAradio.com.
Hello, you are listening to Soul Wanderings on KGRA Digital Broadcasting, Salt Lake City, Utah, Hudson Valley, New York. If you're enjoying the show, I encourage you to visit soulwanderings.com. There's information about myself and the show. You'll also be able to link to my social media platforms where you can see who's coming on to wander with us next and learn more information about who is on the show and how you can get in touch with them and all of that good stuff. And I highly encourage you to visit the brand new website, kgradb.com. That's KGRA Digital Broadcasting, so DB. And it will offer you more. There's just so much there, more than ever before, including KGRA Classics. There's definitely something for everyone. So go and visit the new website, kgradb.com. We have been visiting with Dr. Gary Salyer this evening, author of Safe to Love Again, How to Release the Pain of Past Relationships and Create the Love You Deserve, with the focus tonight on loving through this pandemic, which we are going to get to just as we shared. Right before the break, Gary, you shared with us that this love, we are all born worthy of it. It is our birthright to love and to be loved. What a great place to end before a break, but tell me more.
And that's a hard grasp because culture, and especially dating culture, sends a feeling of unworthiness all to everybody. In fact, I think the biggest thing I see in love and relationships is this feeling of unworthy. It's an epidemic of unworthiness out there. If you think about it, the dating apps say that based on this idea of compatibilities. The longer the list, the better the compatibility. So you would automatically pair up better. But there's two things about this. And one is that when people have a long list, we start saying, well, gosh, have I read Dostoevsky too? Do I do Pilates as well as Dostoevsky? I'm not sure I'm worthy, right? We have these long lists, and when we start seeing it in others, we start saying, well, gosh, I wonder if I'm worthy. And then there's the experience that the dating apps know about. They say, they prime you to swipe left. Oh, maybe there's somebody else. They know you get a dopamine rush. And I've had so many, especially women, but clients share with me, you get to the 2-3 month period, and out of exasperation, the person says, they think they're falling in love, and the other says, I'm not quite sure if this is the right relationship. Maybe we got 30 of my criteria, but maybe if I could just get 40, right? And then people get this feel because dating culture is about swiping left for more and more compatibility. And the crazy thing is the research that's been done in the last 10 years shows that using compatibility lists is actually a predictor for non-lasting. That the more and more you use long list of compatibility, the more and more you're using things to say we don't work. We're not right for each other. And then when they break up, say, well, we just didn't have enough in common. When in fact, what creates and predicts lasting is what's called the quality of the marital friendship or the partnership friendship. The people that make it, they have some compatibility, but they can be very different.
That's why they say opposites attract, right?
Yes. But if they have a quality friendship, do they give each other what I would say welcomed, worthy, cherished, and empowered? You can have things up your wazoo with compatibility, and if those 4 feelings aren't there, it won't matter. The classic example I tell, and I've seen it multiple times, sorry about that, is that she wanted to work with me, and she had a tendency to never feel worthy or cherished in relationships. And it turns out, you guessed it, she was never really given the feeling of worthy and cherished in childhood. And when she came in the first session, she says, oh my God, I have found Mr. Jackpot. Now, I'm always interested in Mr. Jackpot, especially before we have changed the reference feelings that she's using, right? And I go, well, tell me about Mr. Jackpot.
Tell me more.
Oh my God, he's 6'2", AJ, and he's built like Pierce Brosnan, and he wears an Armani suit. My God, an Armani suit. He's a doctor. And not only that, but can you believe he's actually very good? Gary Chapman's love languages. He's worked on himself. And he does Pilates. I mean, can you believe a guy like that? I mean, this is the guy that gives people like me a bad, bad way to go, right?
Not my type of guy, but good for her.
Yeah, he's not mine either, but nevertheless, but there we are. And of course, it was about 2 sessions later, maybe they've been dating a month, right? And she comes in and she's got that look on her face. I go, what's going on? She goes, yeah, he likes Pilates. He likes checking out the other women. Not so much worthy, not so much cherished.
Right. That didn't work out so well.
Yeah. So now this is exactly what that research says. Yes, compatibility, no for feelings, right? Now, we work on giving her a right to feel worthy and feel cherished. Those are her 2 missing reference feelings. And she goes out and she starts dating again. And now she's got, goes on Bumble or wherever she went. And she's got 2 guys. Another one is a virtual replay of Mr. Jackpot. He's like 6'3". The only difference is he's an attorney, right? and he does yoga. I think they did yoga together, right? Now, the other guy that shows up, he makes good money. He's not quite an attorney. He's an IT, good, solid. He's a homeowner. But he shows up. I saw a picture and great smile, and he's about 20, 30 pounds overweight, right? And he comes in with an Hawaiian shirt versus an Armani, right? And she dates both of them for about a month, 5 weeks. And she says, well, I made a choice. And I said, who did you choose? She goes, I chose the guy in the Hawaiian shirt. And I go, why? Now, this is where I'm checking things out, right? And she goes, because he made me feel like a queen.
Aww,
now,
yes.
Queen is where you feel welcome, worthy, cherished, and empowered. Just pointing that out. Yeah, he makes me feel like a queen. Bingo, Yahtzee.
There you go.
Now notice that we had to swap out the normal stuff that you see on dating apps for a more secure way of looking at things. We replaced her brain with the feelings of a secure brain, and suddenly she starts picking. Suddenly she starts choosing and maintaining and creating differently. This is the magic of working with feelings versus labels or diagnoses. I don't pathologize. What I do is your brain was born worthy. It has the resources. It simply got a security memo at some point in time. Oh, reaching out for my needs isn't so good, or having a voice isn't very good. And which taking that and giving that security memo an expiration date. And it is always feelings. I can still remember one client talking to me, and it's in the book, about her inability to reach out and ask for her needs. A lot of people have that one, right?
Yes, I agree.
And especially women who culturally are told to be givers, right?
Mm-hmm. Or they're just not even aware of what their needs are. They're not in touch with themselves enough to know.
Well, we'd done the work. She knew her needs, but she couldn't quite reach out to her beloved to say, hey, this is what I need. She goes, and she comes in, and we're doing this work, and we're kind of early days. She goes, we got a dog, and we have a big property, and we put in one of those electronic dog collars where there are sensors around the perimeter. And every time the dog gets too close to the perimeter, it gets an uncomfortable sensation, so it never leaves the property, right? She goes, I realized that when it comes to reaching out my needs, I'm like the dog. I have an electronic collar. She goes, every time I think of asking or reaching, I get an uncomfortable feeling, and then I don't ask. She goes, it's like I have an electronic dog collar on me, and it's feeding me these feelings of unworthy and disempowered. Mm. That's what it feels like. It's just an uncomfortable feeling, and then we go, better not say anything.
And then what?
Well, that's
the thing is, yeah, go ahead.
Well, some therapists say, well, let me coach you on how to ask your needs. And that's important. I do with my couples too. How do you ask needs? There's a better and worse ways. But if they don't have that feeling inside that gives them the permission to say yes, they won't do it. Because all emotions are in human beings. It's from the mammal brain up, right? It's about 100 million years old in us. It's all emotions motivate. They're in motivational states in our brains so that we can bond and things like that. So the way I point out, emotions don't have language. But if they did have words to speak, they would only say two, yes or no. The yes feelings that tell us we can have a full relationship and engage in a fully satisfying way are welcomed and worthy and cherished and empowered. Yes, I can have a voice. Yes, I can reach out. Yes, I can be a leader. Yes, I have a right to be in my body and in this world. But if you were given unwelcomed and unworthy or uncherished or disempowered or anything like that, right, then you will say no to being in my body. No to reaching out for my needs. No to being a we. No. It's an elegant, simple theory. Our brains use emotions as motivational states. And to be honest with you, AJ, there was a part of me that after all these years was expecting as a man that this would be a very logical solution when I got down to the bottom of it, right? And I can still remember the day I realized it was all feelings driving it. Yes, we can use the left brain for certain things. I won't say it's all right brain driven, and I can still remember looking up to the heavens saying, all right, this is real funny. So women were always right. And it's like, okay, now we know you're a woman.
Well, there is that.
there is that. There is that. And if you're a man out there, maybe the word cherished isn't the word used because it's not the first one that comes to me. But I bet you respected and honored and appreciated are.
Yeah,
right?
Just change the wording. Yes.
And you have a right to have your feelings. You were born with an emotional processor on right brain, women on left and right. It was so that we can compartmentalize, so that when we are on a hunt, and the animal circles back, that we keep in our logical brain so we don't overreact, and we can bring food back to our beloved and our children, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's meant to be a survival mechanism. We were never meant to stay in survival anymore. Like we know that when we're under stress and danger, our brain goes into cortisol mode, right?
Yes.
But if you stay in cortisol too long, there was a book by, Why Zebras Don't Have Ulcers. Zebras they don't imagine, they just see the predator or don't see it. We can imagine it. But if we stay in a safety place too long, so what I'm saying to men is you were born to have feelings and to only get out of your feelings when needed. But now what we take is a dangerous situation and make it our whole lifestyle. This is the essence of the masculine sex role. It's a BS way to live. We have a right to feel our feelings, to use these feelings instead of logical stuff, and I can honestly say the moment I was given full access to these feelings, it was like a blind man getting his sight. The idea that women are a complete mystery, not so true. It's only when your emotional radar has been turned off.
I was going to say, women, we're not as complicated as we are told to be. We just want the basic things as well. I just like men do, I would feel. But
yes,
you know a lot more than I do.
But if you're using the wrong, if you're turned off your emotional scanners, you can't navigate relationships. Then your left brain has to make all sorts of things up, and it's making up stuff, and then it does get complicated.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The story I can tell you is like, back in my first marriage, this is how it rolls. I was not given much of a right to exist, so I was in my head, right? Not much of a right to switch in, right? Because who would want to, and not much of a right to be part of a we. I mean, those are the things I was given. I talk about it in the book. There came a day where she said, I don't feel you understand me as a woman. I don't feel you get my needs. Cool. What would the perfect intellectual do? He would go out and get 5 books on women and read them. Intellectually, read them. And man, I absorbed that content. And then we'd be talking, and this is me, 40 years, 35 years ago. And she would say things like something, and I go, well, that's interesting because the book, if I missed some, she goes, well, I wanted this. She goes, that's interesting because the book said women need this. Then I'd miss something else, some clue, right? And she goes, well, this is why. I go, that's interesting because that other book said that women want this. And I did that about 10 times. And then she turned on me and she says, Gary, read me, not the darn book.
Well, there.
Now, that's emotional radar.
Yes.
If you're a man out there, women use feelings to ping the world. You know how radar sends out radar waves and then it pings off and then it comes back. Now, if you're an air traffic controller and that plane doesn't ping back, it's called a stealth airplane. And if flight 747 suddenly disappears from the screen, it doesn't ping back, then, we have a worried air traffic controller because we don't know where things are at. When we don't give a woman back a feeling, this is not a I feel that statement, I feel sad or depressed. She doesn't know where she's at, and then we get anxious responses.
Yes.
The best way to be able to be in a relationship is to ping our partner back with a feeling of where we're at, especially if we're a guy to a woman, and to ping her back that we got her feelings. So this is why it's all about emotional feedback and coaching. Instead of saying, well, let me see if I can fix that. No. Don't fix. Feel. Feel first, fix later.
That goes right along with that book. Mr. Fix It. Mr. Fix It.
And I hate saying it, it's logical if you understand that emotions are primary.
Right.
But, don't start there. But it is. And so it's important for couples, to give each other, to acknowledge each other's feelings. I mean, that's the biggest thing that's going on in COVID, is I tell people the first rule for couples who are getting too much time together is you got to make every feeling right. Feeling.
Yes.
Acknowledge each other's feelings and make sure that you're talking about feelings. You don't try to fix. You just say, "Wow, gosh, you must be really scary. Tell me where you feel like you're going to lose you feel like you're really sad and disempowered. You're going to lose your career if this thing goes on. What's the worst part of that? Oh my God, that must feel terrible."
Yeah.
So, and that means the rule is if you're in COVID, you're checking in with feelings. All feelings are okay because we're the air traffic controllers. We have to land those feelings successfully. But you also got to make sure that one person both people don't freak out at the same time. Somebody's got to.
How do you navigate that?
You see, you have to sit down and say, if somebody's having a meltdown of hopelessness or anger, the other one's got to stay centered and say, "Gosh, honey, I didn't realize it was that bad of a day. Tell me more about that." Mm-hmm. It might mean homeschooling is really tough. I need help out, huh? I think more guys need to help out women with homeschooling because most women are getting that and their careers handed to them on their hats.
I agree.
And during COVID, and I know some men will say, "But this is not just what I do well." Well, we would never do that.
Right. We're in our other careers and not teachers for a reason. It's challenging for everyone. Mm-hmm. But going back to acknowledging of feelings, that alone, I feel just having someone hear you, genuinely listen to you and acknowledge how you're feeling can also dissipate the emotion and the feeling that you're having.
Interesting you should say that, actually.
Oh, really?
It's funny. During COVID, and I teach it to all the couples I work with, by the way, there was some research that point out when couples go in to do, like couples therapy or couples work, for most therapists, it's 18 to 35% success rate. Okay, now I'm a little higher than that. I'm more like 85, but because I work a little differently. And then after a year, there's a 50% relapse rate. And they found out, so what's the difference between couples that keep a lasting, good, loving relationship and those that don't? Now, this also relates to COVID. There's only one difference, the research points out. The research points out that those couples who had what's called a stress-reducing conversation. Now, stress-reducing conversation is for 10 or 15 minutes, the couple would check in about their day. How was your day? Oh my God, I had that PowerPoint presentation from hell. The screen froze. I was right in front of the CEO of the company. Oh my God, that sounds horrible, right? Tell me more about that. That must have been terrible. oh my God, it was, go, well, you felt really frustrated. Yeah, no wonder you're upset. Now notice, you don't say, well, did you do a Control-Alt-Delete to undo the screen, honey? You don't do that. Did you have a backup copy on another computer? You don't try to fix it for them. You just feel. And when both couples do that, what it does, it keeps the stress from the outside world from getting into the relationship, where it comes out sideways as conflict. Mm-hmm. The only difference between those that make it and don't is the good couples have these little check-ins, rituals of communication at the end of the day, where they check in emotionally, attune emotionally, just like we talked about early, right? And they give each other feelings of welcome, worthy, cherished, and empowered. And so both people feel loved. They don't fix it. Now, these conversations are never about the relationship. That's a whole different form. But if they do that, I tell my couples during COVID, do this. There's a huge amount of stress. The first line of defense is get the stress out of your relationship. And there's only one thing, do the stress, reducing conversation. If you do that, you're going to be heading the beast off at the pass. And you got to make everyone okay. And then every feeling okay. And then you have to be able to, make sure that one keeps holding the fort for the other.
Yeah, that's been one of the most important practices in my relationship, is having that stress-reducing conversation. Just talk about our day really quick, good, bad, different, indifferent, whatever that looks like. Get it out of the way so we can move on with our day. It is so extremely beneficial.
It is. Really good couples have really warm feelings of rituals of connection, right? And I tell this too. There's research that point out that when just so that men can be motivated who are listening to this, both. I was just dealing this with a couple the other day. If a man or both partners need to do this if you're not hetero, but the research was done originally on men to see, and it was about when men are willing to have a 6-second kiss, because 6 seconds gives women an oxytocin rush, and they were willing, before they go off to work, a really good kiss, not one of these husband kisses, but a really good long one, right? A kiss worth, really good. And
the good ones.
A good one. There is non-erotic hug. That means you're not grabbing for body parts gratuitously, right? And it's really, and you say, gosh, honey, love you, going off to work now, right? And you check in just a couple. It might be a text message with a heart or just a 2-minute conversation over lunch saying, how you doing? You talk, right? How's your day going? And then you come home and you give a beautiful 6-second kiss that's worth coming home to, and you check in with them with these stress-reducing conversations. You give a really good hug. 75% of the time, those men, when they made a sexual advance, got a yes. They felt empowered, right? Because their women felt cherished.
They felt cherished and connected, yes.
Exactly. Now, if those rituals of connection, if there wasn't the 6-second kiss, if there wasn't the non-erotic hug or no hug at all, or just leaving without saying, or not checking in during the day and coming back and playing with your iPhone and or being, making it all, I got to go and do my work. I didn't get anything done. The commute was long. And you don't have that. That number falls to 6%.
It's a drastic change.
It's a drastic change by a factor of 12. And what's driving it? Feelings. When the whole idea that the whole day is foreplay, right? It's really the whole emotional sense of connection. And no one feels connected or loved unless they're feeling welcomed and worthy. Mm-hmm. As one woman put it, she goes, I don't need, we were talking about the whole sexual thing. And she goes, I don't need much. I just need when you come home to light up and say, I love you, and give me a hug and a kiss. And I will feel so much more. Now that's welcomed. That's welcomed, and her primary need was, love language was physical touch, so that's worthy. Welcomed and worthy created, and cherished, created and empowered for him. And he felt more cherished because was what his love language was too. But they were letting the stress of life get between them.
Mm-hmm. Really,
Yeah,
it's such little effort to maintain when you consider the opposite, something as big as and detrimental as divorce. It could lead up to that. When you just take those little moments every day, it could make an entire difference on your relationship longevity.
It does. Love is won and lost in the little moments.
Yes.
It really is. When my son got married, we had to do there were like 8 or 9 of us, a couple of best friends, but both dads and moms had to give the obligatory speech, toast at the reception afterwards, right? And my message to them was very simple. He said, no more than, he knew I spoke across the country. He said, no more than 4 minutes, Dad.
Keep it short and sweet.
Yeah, short and sweet. Oh, his best friend went much longer than I did. But and I was just like, this is a great day. This is beautiful. It's a high point in life. But love is won and lost in the little moments. It is not these big moments of giving somebody 36 roses or the anniversaries. Those are the icings on the cake. The cake are these string of little moments often, because really the heart and soul of attachment, in all of these rites is attuned, timely communication. Dan Siegel, the great neuroscientist, calls it attuned communication. Okay. Contingent communication. Sorry about that. And it means the molecules and the little atoms in the molecule of love, these little moments where you say, gosh, I wonder where the salt and pepper shaker is. And you go, I think I saw it over there on the counter. Or the moment like, gosh, I wonder what's going to happen to Grandma in Conway. And instead of going, she must be worried, you go, wow, honey, is that on your mind right now? These little moments of turning toward so that people feel welcomed and worthy, right? Versus turning against or turning away. The biggest thing that I see it's a bummer for love are these stupid iPhones.
Oh, definitely. So like all phones, social media, all of the things.
Too much. And they're constantly giving little attention, I hate saying it, but Facebook and these apps want to be able to ding you when something, and I've had to turn mine off because, they just didn't know. There's no way anybody is meant to give this many bids for attention, right? We have a finite source. We have to manage who we bid to and how we bid to them. And that gets into the other thing I see going on in COVID for couples. Now, if, we're good couples respond to each other's bids for attention, in other words, they make each other feel worthy, right? 86% of the time. 86% of the time. And the couples that are on the rocks, about 33% of the time. The other couples turn against or turn away. Turn against is, you lost the salt shaker again? You worried about your mom, your grandmother again? We just talked about that yesterday. Or just turning away is, gosh, I wonder what the stock market did today. Right?
Yeah, completely separated, yes.
Yes. Now, when you're together all the time, you're constantly each other's feet. We know from research that over a supper, a couple, whether it be hetero or other, okay, will give up to 200 bids, 200 and a half hour of back and forth bids. Now, the system needs some rest. It needs some me time too, as well as we time. And the thing that COVID did to couples is I call it a right to separate, be a me, go out, explore your world, and belong. Separate and belong. But when you belong, there's a lot more bids And we all get a little weary. We need to have some downtime, some me time, to be able to recharge our bodies so we can keep giving attuned responses. So you got to sit down and navigate the rules of how you create me time and not just we time. Now, so that some person really gets to be, maybe there's a sign, you create times, you create situations, chairs where people sit in, whatever it is. A couple has to sit down and navigate. How do each people in the family, kids as well, get some me time? Because it can't be all we time.
Learning to navigate all of that time together, not having our alone time. What are some ways that we can do that and maintain a healthy relationship with ourselves and with others?
Well, I think for couples, especially during COVID, sheltering in place. Like I said, there was this, the one of the rights I talk about is the right to separate and belong. The little toddler goes out, plays with the toys. Mom doesn't tell mom to play with the toys. Dad doesn't tell him to do with the toys. And they can come back and belong. There's an ebb and a flow like tides, going out, coming in, going out, explore, be me, come in. And all of us need some time away from bids. And we need to have a good, healthy space to return to where we know our bids for attention and security are there. The couple has to sit down and really discuss an objective. How much me time each person needs, how much we time. Now, if you're listening out there, women really need me time.
Yes.
There's so many bids, especially if women are parents, that they've got to get off of a planet where there's no place for me, right? I can still remember one woman saying, I feel like I live on that planet in Star Trek, and where everybody that was so overpopulated, they were elbow to elbow and they only got to be in a room by themselves for 2 hours a year.
No,
right?
no. That would drive me insane.
That will build up stress internally into the relationship.
Definitely.
So you sit down and you say, okay, how much me time do you need? How do we get it? Okay, so if you're sitting in the chair over there, that's your time. Or you decide from 5:30 to 6:30, or this room. And kids will need it too. Okay, you have to navigate what are the signals, what are the conditions. And when they are in me time, that does not mean, honey, let me bother you. It means, or if they come out of the room just to get a cup of coffee, you don't say, well, honey, now that you're out here, I know you're in me time, but I just wanted to run this by you. It is a bid-free time. Get off the treadmill of bids. Too many bids are too many bids. We're finite. And on a given day, somebody may say, honey, I need a little more me time today. It's been really tough doing the homeschooling. And a good way is if you've got a partner who's homeschooling, help out. Help out so she's not got it all, so she can have that me time, or he can have it if it were running in reverse. So you've got to get very conscious and decide what the rules are and what are the signals. Otherwise, this thing will eat a couple alive, because too much togetherness is too much of a good thing is too much of a good thing.
Yes, I agree with that. It's so important, even through when we're not in this pandemic, to have that time. It creates really great boundaries in relationships. Yes. And the self-care is so important to have for yourself, and for so many reasons. I have to have alone time. I'm an advocate of it. I will share with everyone. Please get to know yourself. Spend those times with yourself.
Yeah. And of course, we just would like to acknowledge that COVID is an interesting thing. It takes this right, which is at the core. I think the we and how we navigate me and we time is the core of how any couple creates and maintains the relationship. I'm always dealing with this this dynamic in couples, because most times people don't create much of a we, to be honest with you. Couples, it's almost a foreign concept. But for singles, it's the exact opposite. They get all me time and no right to connect. They can't go out and date normally. So, and you have to in that case, you would have to just stop dating endlessly and swiping left and get to know a few people better by swiping down. And then you get to create what I call a temporary couple bubble, where you find out what each person needs safety-wise, and you might want to check with your doctor these days, if you can meet somebody, and then if you've got any pre-existing conditions, and then you make sure that if two people want to meet and date, then they have to agree, okay, I'll stop meeting with my poker buddies, and she won't go to her family reunion. And so both people quarantine for 2 weeks, and they create a temporary couple bubble so they can hold hands. So in this instance, notice that the cure, one of the strategies for dealing with COVID for singles is the exact opposite. It's not creating me time, it's creating we, at least a temporary. Now, this comes earlier in a relationship than normal, but one of the upside of the downside for COVID if you're single is if you can date, if you can create these little bubbles of safety for each other, it takes a little more commitment, takes a little more cooperation. Guess what you're seeing? You're going to see if there's a we possible. You're seeing if there are signs of the we. So COVID is actually taking our relationship patterns and it's right in the middle of how much me and we. And look at what's going on in our culture. For decades, we've been telling people, it's all about me, self-actualization. And we don't talk about we, and we talk about swiping left. Not enough we, not enough me, Mm-hmm. This is COVID is presenting us with a huge opportunity to grow, to see that at the heart of being a human is, yes, being a me, but also being a we. Wearing masks is not just about my safety. It is about me making other people feel cherished and protected.
Beautiful. Do you see this happening for a long term? And if so, what do you feel the repercussions in relationships will be?
Well, I think there'll be some ways things will go back, but I'm not sure things are going to totally go back. I mean, people are saying that all over. I think the repercussions is, we know that after some of the hurricanes, like the one in 1989, I forgot what the name of it was, that in Louisiana, there were two things that happened. Divorce rates went up, so did pregnancies.
Yes, they did.
And also marriages went up. Sometimes what I've noticed, I've had like 7 or 8 couples with 25 to 30 years, or basically about 30 years come in, and all of a sudden they can't use distraction to keep away from looking at their long-term enduring vulnerabilities with each other.
Right. They're having to face it.
Yes. So it is, and all of them 7 out of the 8 came out with better relations. The other one that I couldn't really work with is one partner that had already filed for divorce, wasn't willing to come in, except to talk to me privately. But for the others, we were able to get down to the core. What one woman said to me at the end, and now they had a good relationship, she goes, we've been with 5 or 6 therapists, and nobody got down to the depths of what was really going on. So this is a huge opportunity. The upside is you get to create a really beautiful we. By looking at these things that you've used distractions to manage that have kept the walls and the distance and the lack of connection there, it can create a beautiful opening. There's a growth element to this. And I do believe that for singles. I think the whole swipe left culture, that's going to go away. People are realizing swipe left, swipe left, swipe left. Now they're looking at, oh my God, I swiped left, thought there'd be better. Now there's no one here for me. I was so in pursuit of someone who might be better that I didn't opt to be in a good relationship that, So we're learning that the core of being a human is to be a me and a we at the same time.
Yes.
Instead of this cultural idea of the Marlboro Man. I can still remember one couple that came to me, and and I talked about this in the book. It was they had been to every guru of self-help you could ever imagine. Not knocking any of the gurus, but they had done Tony Robbins, Joe Dispenza, Deepak Chopra. They had done, it was a hall of fame. And what he said to me, she says, we want a we. And he says, what we thought would work and give us a better marriage did. She goes, we thought that by working on ourselves, we would have a better marriage, but we haven't. Because they got to be better me's, but there was no we between them. Too much we is that. But notice that
I can see how
we.
Yes, I could see how beneficial that would be. And we do need to work on ourselves. I agree completely. But in a relationship, how you're explaining it as a we, that is definitely an important step.
It is. Now, notice what was going on between those two. Just get back to what I said. She had no right to really belong as a child. She had to be a me, and she was anxious, dying to become a we. On the other hand, he too didn't have a proper right to separate belonging, except he had the exact opposite. When he grew up, he was always in mess with a very intrusive mother. So he was constantly going, oh my God, I can't be a me. So when she offered a we, his brain said, oh my God, I'm going to get in a mesh. She didn't feel cherished. He didn't feel empowered. When we gave him back a feeling of empowered, I can still remember the day he says, oh my God, I had never felt that I could be empowered in a we. I always thought I would be disempowered. And it wasn't until that moment that he felt the feeling of empowered and cherished in a we that he could give her a we. And then she felt cherished. And then when she felt cherished, she could calm down and not need and go after him so much. And then now things stabilized and went up. Notice that for both of them, what shifted was, yes, there were skills to be given. I'll grant you that. But we had to shift. His core feeling of a we will means disempowerment, and her feelings that a we means I will be not cherished. When she could feel cherished, she could calm down. When he felt empowered, he could come in. Suddenly, they start circling up. Without the reference feelings, that couple doesn't change. And nobody in the self-help group found out why they couldn't create, because they were too busy doing self. The top of the food chain for Maslow should have been not just self-development, but we-development. And I think one of the things that we're going to have to get involved with after COVID is this splitting of the fracturization of our culture and the polarization. This is what happens when all you get is me. Me. I'll find my table news to watch that fits me, instead of what's good for the we. I think there's going to be more emphasis on global healing, on community. That we are part of a community, that we are part of a we. And I believe that part of the upside of COVID, if you're the ones that don't die in the middle of the process, and we really feel for those people, to be honest. But on the other side of this, I think there's going to be more consciousness that what is the we are creating? And is a quality one where we feel loved, welcomed, and worthy, cherished, and empowered. And do we not only receive it, but do we give it? I think, on the other side, there's going to be more emphasis on what does a good relationship feel like? Because right now, if you're single or a couple, relationships are at the top of your mind, and I believe that that discussion has been planted in everybody's brain, and it's a good thing for love on this.
I couldn't agree more. I'm sitting here just nodding and like preaching in my head. Yes. This whole experience is going to be so huge and profound for all of us. And I know in our last time that we spent together, we did bring up spirituality a little bit. And so I'm comfortable to bring up now. When you share all of this from the me to the we, it really is, in my opinion, from what I see and feel, going to change us into being more connected to one another.
Yes.
And that's a beautiful thing.
It is.
I'm just really looking forward to that magic.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, and more you see it. I mean, I just saw Thomas Hebel wrote a book that was on healing our corporate trauma. It was not the title. I mean, now we're getting the, if you think of COVID and what's been going out there in culture, we have been living, for better or worse, I don't use the word trauma much, but in this instance, we've been living in a trauma bath and the roots are this radical individualism of American philosophy that is all about the me. You trace it back to Ayn Rand and, people over reading Carl Rogers and Monroe. We could get all, graduate professor here if we wanted to, but, these philosophers argued eventually, things. It started with Descartes, for God's sake, when he said, I think, therefore I am.
Yes.
What if he had said, I feel? He could have just as easily said that.
Well, he wasn't conditioned to say that then.
Yes, I feel, therefore I am. And what if we could say, we feel, therefore we are? Imagine that power in us, in a same a framework where we are conscious of how we feel and make others feel. Mm-hmm. Imagine what that would do just on social media for the snarky comment that is made online all too often because we can hide behind a digital version of ourselves. Mm-hmm. But that we would never do face to face.
It's true. We wouldn't have the courage.
No.
But those real life conversations, if they're, done calmly and productively, can move mountains. And here we are on social just being completely, I don't even know. Rude is just not enough for what I want to express, but people are very bold in what they are saying and sharing.
Yes.
And it is causing separation for sure.
It has. And I believe we'll get back to spirituality. I mean, I wrote about that in chapter 9 of my book. And I did all this attachment, I told about science and I told about clients and I told about myself. I made it all about feelings, but I did talk about the science behind it, right? Mm-hmm. And then I talked about that there's a spirituality side of this. And I guarantee you I haven't seen any other attachment books that did this. Looking back, I realized there are higher self soul lessons. And higher self, by the way, is however you define it. It's if you want to make it your best self on your best day and there's no metaphysical quality, I'm fine with that. Good. Bravo. On the other hand, if you want to say it's some higher self version of yourself pre-existent, that's cool. I've had clients that said, that came from India and said, oh, yes, this is like my, they've had lots of incarnations. I don't care, however that thing is. But there are higher self lessons to be learned here. Mm-hmm. And learning our lessons is what we're about. There is a deep spirituality crisis in this country.
Yes.
That's beyond religion. This is, how do we deal and learn our soul lessons? Because what I know is that I signed up for what I believe. I signed up for those lessons with my mother so I could learn the things and ask the questions that allowed me to write a groundbreaking new theory of attachment. That later this week I've got like 100 therapists that want me to explain so they can start doing it with their clients and they can have better results.
How exciting!
yeah, I mean, this is about creating a movement. And there's a deeply spiritual aspect to this, and you can bootleg that into whatever system of faith you have, right? And, because I don't know any major form of religion or spirituality that doesn't talk much about love.
Mm-hmm.
And love is these four feelings. If you can understand the places in your brain that got locked up and it kind of took a feeling or right and put it like in a layaway package, back in the 70s, Christmas time, you could buy something earlier in the year and just put it away in layaway, and it would be taken off the shelves in the store and put into the storage for you to come back later and get when you had the money, right? Well, none of these rights, they're missing, but they've been put in layaway. Mm-hmm. And all of these feelings and rights are there, and it's for waiting for the day that you can offer your brain safety. Mm-hmm. And I consider that to be a deeply spiritual aspect of our lives. Yes. And the more I realized I could look at that as lessons I signed up to learn, it took the victim right out of me.
Yes.
And there's nothing that will disable relationships like taking a victim mentality. Because I guarantee you, when someone is a victim, it will also give them permission to sometime later be a perpetrator. I got wounded, so I can wound you.
I agree.
So it takes the victim, gives some purpose, and it allows us to learn. For both those, the couple I talked about, we just recently, I talk about them in the chapter where these are their soul lessons. And when they learn them, their lifelong patterns changed. So, and it's okay. I had one person who read the book, a beta reader, who was a very scientific engineer. I just love the book. But what's all that woo-woo stuff?
Of course, there will always be someone. There will always be someone.
I said, it's not woo-woo. I said, and I wanted to say it's woo-woo only if you haven't learned them.
Yes. That's another show completely, talking about the victimhood and healing that inner victim. That's and finding gratitude in it. That's that's a 2-hour show in and of itself. It's such a beautiful practice that I have incorporated in my life. I've seen other people do it as well. And the healing that occurs because of it is just beautiful. And it's like nothing else you could give yourself. It's such a beautiful gift.
Yeah.
We're running short. We're running short on time. We're towards the end of the show. Before we get there, I want to make sure everyone is able to find your book, which is Safe to Love Again, How to Release the Pain of Past Relationships and Create the Love You Deserve, as well as be able to contact you through social or email or whatever that looks like. How can they do that?
Sure. Well, the book is on Amazon. You just go to Safe to Love Again by Gary Salyer, Salyer. If you want to contact me, the best way is to go to my website, GarySalyer.com, Salyer.com. There's a free gift on the front page. You just scroll down a little bit called Love Inspirations. You can sign up for the email. And there's also contact. If you write me at Dr. Gary, D-R-G-A-R-Y, at GarySalyer.com, Dr. Gary at GarySalyer.com. Then if you have a question or if you would like a consult to see what your missing rights are, I offer those for only $97. It's a good way. That's the best way to come. Books on Amazon. Go to my website, GarySalyer.com. You can get on the email list where I try to really support people at this time. And then you can write me at Dr. Gary at GarySalyer.com. And I would consider it an honor for anybody that reaches out.
Oh, so good. We're so easily able to contact you, which is just wonderful. It's been awesome to have you back on the show again. I learned something new this time. Last time I learned a lot. This time it was good. I learned more and validated in what I am already practicing. Thank you for that.
Well, thank you. This is absolutely beautiful. It's been a wonderful time. And you're a deeply resonant, soulful woman, AJ. Thank you again for having me. And if you ever want me on to talk about victims and perps and perpetrators and all those other things, let me know.
Oh, it's on. I will definitely. I feel like it's such an important thing to talk about. We will definitely be in touch, and we'll have you back to have that share with us. Thank you for the offer.
Thank you. Thank you.
Be sure to go to kgradb.com. Find us and follow us on all social, and like and subscribe. Share with your friends and family, and let's keep having these amazing conversations that bring awareness and connection into our experiences. Thank you all for being here with us tonight. Happy holidays and good night.